I'm Jenna Miscavige. I was born and raised in Scientology. I left when I was 21 years old and wrote a book about it. My uncle, David Miscavige, is the leader of Scientology, and this is my YouTube channel. Hey guys, it's pretty early in the morning. I'm getting ready to go on my plane, but I wanted to do a video before I left because I wanted to tell the story about my daughter being born, and her little baby boxes are here at home, and I needed those in order to tell it. And so I woke up a little bit early so that we could do this. So I'm doing this video based off of a question that one of you asked, and it is, did you make a video about becoming a mother, seeing that you didn't grow up with an average family and your relationships are strained? How was the experience for you? Did you find it difficult? Who supported you? And how did motherhood evolve throughout the years? And so I've actually done 2 videos prior to this one, and I will link the first one right here. So by this point in the story, my son was born. He's about 2 years old now, and now I'm pregnant with my daughter. Now, the pregnancy with my daughter was a little bit interesting because I remember when I found out that she was a girl, I was a little bit afraid. And to be honest, I don't think I ever got over it until she was born. I don't actually know why. Maybe some of you have insight into this. There was something more scary about having a girl, and it's not because I am somebody who's like, girls are more drama. It's actually not like that at all. I don't even feel that way. But there was something about having a little boy that was like, oh, this will be my little buddy. And I don't know, where having a girl, I don't know, it's something maybe about almost reparenting yourself at this point. It's like you have someone maybe who's like you, and that's a little bit scary. Maybe that has something to do with it. So for this pregnancy, even though things were sort of hellish with my family at the time, things were blowing up with my parents, and I no longer spoke to my brother at this point. But I decided that I wanted to have a midwife for this pregnancy because my previous pregnancy was sort of something that I dealt with while I was at work. And this time I was like, no, I'm going to get as much care as possible. And I also decided I was going to give birth at home, which sounds crazy, but my birth with my son was insane, and it was in a hospital, and I did not ever want to do that again. And I made a video about that too. I'll put the link to it here. And so there were these 2 ladies. It was Pam and Bridget. And they would come to my house once a week, and they would do all of the checks. And it was actually just such a wonderful experience. It was like having 2 women, like aunties and grandmas, who were just as excited, if not more excited, for the baby than I was. And they treated me like a person. They weren't like rushing to leave. They were just super cool. Like, these 2 women, I will forever be grateful to them because they made this whole experience so much better than my previous one. When the time finally came, I woke up at like 6:30 a.m. and I could just feel the contractions. And it was the day after my due date, and my stomach was huge. And I was like, I gained so much more weight with my daughter than I did with my son. And it was funny, like, I still wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so excited, I'm going to have a girl. And then I started going into labor, and the gals showed up, and they were like there for me. Dallas was there, my ex-husband, and everything really went smoothly, with the exception that from my past birth, I had Dallas sitting there looking at my face and being like, he's about to come out, he's about to come, for like 8 hours. And then it didn't happen. And so seeing this same person with the same face being like, she's about to come out, I was like, no, I've been here before. And I was just afraid that something was going to happen, and that I was going to die, and the baby was going to die. And it was just because I had had such a difficult experience before. And everyone kept reassuring me, like, no, everything that's going on right now is normal. And I was like, I just became more and more afraid that I was like, no, this was probably about, like, honestly, 20 minutes before she was born, like in the hardest part of labor. I was like, we're going to the hospital. She hasn't come out yet. I walked all the way downstairs and got into Dallas's car. And then once I got into the car, I felt something inside me move. And this had, I mean, it had been about 3 hours by now, but not 3 hours of pushing. I didn't even push yet. And it was just labor progressing. And it was so much different. Like my labor was actually progressing this time where it hadn't before. And the contractions were not as crazy as they were because last time I was on Pitocin. So they actually felt like productive contractions rather than just terrible crushing pain. And then I got in the car, yes, and something shifted. And then I was like, the baby's about to come out. So I had to go back upstairs. Literally, like 5 minutes later, she was born. It was crazy because the second she was born, I felt immediate relief. That did not happen with my son. I was like still in the process of dying when he was born. And so I was completely aware and awake. And then another huge difference is that this baby looked like it was 3 months old because she was not premature. She was on time. They weighed her and she was 9.5 pounds. So this was a big baby. The first thing I thought was like, this baby will survive through the winter. There was none of that anxiety that I had with my son because he was so tiny. And then I immediately got to hold her. And it was like it was just crazy. Like when I think of like the two women being there in Dallas and the baby, it was like this amazing product that we had produced. I feel like that's kind of a Scientology terminology, but it was like we had done this together. And I felt like in my birth, I was not alone. And there was like this big, juicy baby to come out of it. And she was healthy and she was beautiful and she was perfect and she was going to survive through the winter. And there was no more pain anymore. These women were so fucking supportive. They are like queens of the universe. I love them. And Dallas was amazing too. And then like in that moment, I remember being like, oh my God, like this is my little girl. Like I have a little baby girl princess now. And I don't know how to explain the feeling. Like it was like this feeling of like, I have to take the best care of her heart, of her. And I don't know, like just like when I saw her, it's like that experience that other people have when they say they first saw their baby, they were in love. It was like I didn't have that immediately with my son, but with her, it was and by the way, that's fine because with my son, in some ways it made it stronger that I didn't have it immediately, but with her, it was like there wasn't all of this trauma connected to it. And so it was like this feeling came over me. This is my baby. I need to take care of her and protect her. And meanwhile, my son had been downstairs. My mom and dad were looking after him, and he had managed to, like, he was like a maniac. He was like jumping off of things, and like he still has a scar because he hit his head on something, and he like, anyways, that was something that had happened in the middle of the birth that I forgot to mention. That was really crazy. And one of my biggest concerns during pregnancy was like, I don't want my sweet little baby boy to feel like he's being replaced, and he like, it's going to be hard for him. And he had made some scary comments during my pregnancy that had us like terrified. And then it was so sweet. Like the second he saw his sister, he was holding her. He was sitting on the bed holding her. And he had the biggest smile on his face. It's literally the cutest thing I've seen in my life, with my son Archie there holding his baby sister with this huge smile. And he was immediately like, he didn't say this, but it was really obvious, and it has been true since then, that he was immediately like, This is my little sister. I'm responsible. I'm going to take care of her. And he has assumed that role since she was born. Like he sort of would take it upon himself to like teach her things, or he would be like, she's so cute. And it's funny because later on, he was like, I remember him telling me, like, probably when he was like 7, he was like, I didn't realize that Winnie wasn't always going to be a baby. Like, when she was getting older, he's like, I guess she's not going to be a baby for her whole life. And I thought that was so cute because it says something about how he thought of her. Anyways, so as it turned out, I still had like tearing down there when I gave birth. They actually said it was the worst tearing they'd ever seen, which was kind of hilarious to me because I felt nothing, because whatever tearing situation was happening, it was so much less than what I'd experienced with my son that it was like nothing. But they're like, we actually have to go to the hospital to get this sewed up. So we went to the hospital, but we brought my daughter, Winnie. The doctor there kept being like, oh, if you had given birth in the hospital, we could have like cut you like an episiotomy and this wouldn't have happened. And then I was basically like, well, the last time I gave birth in the hospital, they fucked me over. And I told him the story and he was like, oh my God, you need to sue those guys. And so he stopped making rude comments. But I wound up getting an epidural in order in order to get sewn up, which was fine. But to be honest, this doctor was great. And the two midwives, Bridget and Pam, were with me the entire time I was there. And they followed up with me every day after. They helped me to make sure my daughter latched so I could actually nurse her where I couldn't nurse my son. I just pumped the whole time. And it was such a big difference, them coming to me and not me having to bring a baby and walk and do all this stuff to the doctor's office in order to learn this. They came for the first several days and actually taught me how to nurse. That just was everything at the time. So also, I don't know how I did not mention this earlier, but me and Dallas were decided on moving back to San Diego. And I remember now a big part of giving birth that was kind of hectic was that we were moving literally like the week after she was born. So actually a few days after she was born, we packed up all of our things and our house in Virginia, everything, and into a big moving truck. And Dallas and his cousin JJ drove out to California back to San Diego. And I stayed behind until they made it there. And then I actually stayed at my parents' house with my daughter and my son. And it was actually really hard not to have Dallas there and to have our entire home completely upheaved in a few days after giving birth and after having a baby. And my mom had told me she was going to take that week off. And then she did not take that week off. And then she acted like I was crazy for suggesting that she had said that. But as it turned out was that she had decided to take the next week off because she had decided that she was going to fly with me to San Diego to get us set up, which is nice, but it wasn't really what I was asking for. So it was almost like, I don't want to sound ungrateful, but it was like I really needed help that first week. My daughter was born with Dallas gone and trying to keep my son busy because I really needed help looking after him during that time. And then it was just this weird thing where plans changed. And then it was like a little bit of like gaslighting, like, oh, well, I didn't know you still expected that. And then it was already that week was there. And it was very stressful. And so we flew back to San Diego and we had this house we were renting. It was actually kind of like the start of a new life because now we were going to be back in San Diego. Dallas had his new dream job. We lived in a part of San Diego called Jamul, which was a rural area where a lot of his family members lived. And these family members were not Scientologists. And so previously, before we moved away to Virginia, I had not made an effort to make these non-Scientology family members a part of my life because I guess I was kind of afraid of them and I wasn't used to making new friends and family in that way. But when we arrived, a whole bunch of his cousins came and helped to unload the truck, and some of his cousins' wives, they came and they were holding the baby and they were so happy to see me. And we had sort of started a little bit of a friendship while I was in Virginia because I had been making quilts and things like that. And I had been sending them over, and one of his cousins was selling them. And so it was sort of like this big promise for a new life that actually really did change my life. And it was a really exciting place to be. And I was just really hopeful about the future, but also a lot of changes were happening. I was going back to work. I had two little kids. Yeah, so that's all I'm going to do about this story for now because I actually have to run and catch my flight. But I definitely will need to do another installment about this. I'm interested to hear if you guys have had a boy and a girl and maybe how it felt different to you, or maybe two different birth stories that just wound up being completely different experiences. Thank you so much for listening, and I have to run, but I will see you again soon. Bye.